Good morning, students. Today we are going to study another nematode. The name of the nematode is Enterobius vermicularis. Classification: Enterobius vermicularis belongs to the order Oxyurida, superfamily Oxyuroidea. Family is Oxyuridae. Genus is Enterobius and species is Enterobius vermicularis. Now, this is one of the most important worm which is infecting worldwide. This is very old worm which has been infecting all the people in the world. A common name is pinworm, seedworm, and threadworm. Now, history of this parasite, as I told you, that is, it is the world's most common parasite. This worm was formerly called as Oxyurus vermicularis. The name of this Oxyrus means sharp tail. Enterobius vermicularis means a tiny worm living in the intestine. Now, coming to introduction of this Enterobius vermicularis. Enterobius vermicularis is a common nematode and a common intestinal parasite in humans. The name is, though in the bracket it is written as roundworm, the roundworm refers to the cylindrical type of worm. It is not Ascaris lumbricoides. Okay. Now it has a round body with cylindrical ends and a complete digestive system, which includes both mouth and the anus. This worm is monoecious. That means it has separate sexes, male and female worms. Again, in the general characters of nematodes, I had told you that in nematodes, there's a characteristic that females are usually larger than the males. So here also in Enterobius vermicularis, when we study the morphology of this worm, you will come to know that the female is longer than the male. The female is thicker than the male. This worm, Enterobius vermicularis, or a pinworm, or a threadworm, or a seedworm, It is found worldwide. There is no place that the swarm is not present. It shows its presence throughout the world. This helminth infection is most common childhood infection, and the human beings are the only host because it does not require any intermediate host to complete its life cycle. No multiplication takes place inside the body. Natural habitat is there. The natural habitat of this pinworm is cecum, appendix, and adjacent ascending colon. As I already told you, that it has only one host. It develops only in the human beings. No soil development phase is seen like the other worms. The morphology of the worm, the habitat, as I told you, cecum, appendix, adjacent portion of the ascending colon. And the morphology is of two types, that is eggs and the adult worm. Now this worm possesses a very characteristic type of egg which helps to distinguish it from the other worms. Now we'll study the general characteristics of the eggs. The eggs are colorless. They are not bile stream. They will float on the saturated solution of common salt. They are elongated, ovoid, plano-convex. Now when I say ovoid, that means oval shape. Elongated, that is oval along with the elongation in the oval shape, and on one side it is plane, on the other side it is convex. Therefore, the name has been given as plano-convex. The size of the egg is 50 to 60 micrometers. That is, the length is 50 to 60 micrometers and the width is 30 to 30 micrometers. The egg is double layered shell which is quite thick but transparent. Though the layer is thick, yet it is transparent. Therefore, you can see the egg which is embryonated. Outer albuminous layer makes the egg sticky, and the egg contains fully formed tadpole, which is called embryo, and it is infectious just after 6 hours of deposition on the skin. The eggs can be viable in moist conditions, and for 15 days, 2 weeks, it can be viable on the female lays around 5,000 to 17,000 eggs and see, this is the characteristic what I was telling you, that the outer shell is thick but transparent and there is embryo or tadpole like worm inside the egg. The outer coat is sticky and it is made up of albuminous. Now worm, we'll see the common features. That mouth is rounded by three wing-like cervical alae. The esophagus has double bulb structure. That is one of the most important character of this worm. Now coming to the female worm. Female worm is 8 to 13 millimeters long, 0.3 to 0.5 millimeters thick. The posterior end is pointed pin-like, from which it has gained its name pinworm. The vulva in the females is located at 1/3 of the body from the mouth and opens into a single vagina, which leads to be paired uteri, oviducts, and ovaries. Gravid female whole body is filled by distended uteri, which carries thousands of eggs. As I told you, 5,000 to 17,000 eggs this pinworm lays. So, the uteri is completely filled with this ova. This female worm can survive for 5 to 12 weeks. That is around 1.5 months to 3 months. This female worm can survive. Now, whale worm, which is 2 millimeters to 5 millimeters long, 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters thick. The posterior end is curved, ventrally, sharply truncated, and carries a prominent copulatory spicule. And the male worm lives for 7 to 8 weeks only. That means 1.5 to 2 months only. Now you see, earlier I have shown you that the female worm is long. Did you see? I had told you in the starting that the male is shorter than the female. See, the female is 8 to 13 millimeters, whereas the male is only 2 to 5 millimeters. Again, the female worm is thick. It is 0.3 to 0.5 millimeters, whereas the male is only 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters. Secondly, you can see that the posterior end here is made or looks like a pointed pin in the female, whereas the male has got posterior end which is tightly curved, and that posterior end bears a copulatory spicule. Now, the female worm has got the vulva which is on the anterior 1/3 of the body. Okay. So, anterior 1/3, and see the size of the male, that is 2 to 5 mm, which is almost 1/3 of the female. So, therefore, it is easy for copulation for this worm. Now, coming to the life cycle of this worm. As I told you, they are monoecious. That means the male and the female worms are separate. Both the sexes are separate in the worm. The entire life cycle is in the human host, does not require any intermediate host, nor it is going to get going to have any life cycle in the soil. Does not undergo systemic migration. Like we have seen in Ascaris, that it goes into portal circulation, it goes into the what you call lungs, it goes into the respiratory system, it goes into the kidneys, it goes everywhere. So systemic circulation was there of the worms in Ascaris or roundworms, whereas this is confined to a single system, that is just intestine. Okay, digestive system. Now the natural host being man, infective form is embryonated eggs, and this embryonated eggs are containing a larva, and this larva are infectious to the human beings. Now how is this larva causing the infection? What is the mode of infection of this particular worm? The mode of infection of this worm is when embryonated eggs are ingested by children or any human being, either by contaminated fingers, either by auto-infection, or either by retro-infection, then only the person is going to get infected by this Enterobius vermicularis. Now the life cycle is very, very simple. Just see. Mature gravid female with eggs in the ovary goes and migrates to the anus of the infected person and lays eggs on the perianal skin in the night. It is not in the during the day this is going to happen. It is only when the person or the infected person is going to take rest, relaxed position, that time the eggs are laid on the perianal skin. Now, when the eggs are laid on the perianal skin, how they are reaching out, they are being ingested by the person. Now here lies the effect of healthy living, or whenever the children do not wash their hands after going to toilet, they are contaminated by the eggs. Even the long nails of the patient can carry the eggs inside the nails. This is how the eggs are going to reach the human being, or they are going to be ingested. Another way is whenever the person is making the beds. Many times during the night when the swarm comes or migrates and lays the eggs, they are sticking to the nightwears, undergarments, and sometimes even the bed coverings. So the person who is making the bed and they are going to dust it, the eggs can be ingested and reach the stomach. Now these eggs, when they reach the stomach, the eggshell which is albuminous, that is digested and the larva is released. This larva rapidly grows and passes through the cecum and the appendix and invade the glandular crypts of the intestine and mature there. After maturation, the female becomes gravid, and this mature gravid female with the eggs in the ovary will reach the intestine and migrate to the anus in the night, and the life cycle is repeated. So thus, gravid worms migrate to the rectum and see the eggs laid in the perianal region. Ingestion of this embryonated egg, larvae hatch in the intestine, penetrate and develop in the mucosa. Young worms mature in the lower, smaller intestine and in the upper colon. Okay, the same thing here. You can see the larvae, how they are going to hatch in the small intestine, and see the type of the worm, how it is looking, pinworm, complete seed. You can see the posterior end which is pointed, therefore the name has been given as the pinworm. These eggs, they are in the perianal folds, and the larvae inside the eggs just mature within 4 to 6 hours. Okay. Now, what is the importance of their maturation in 4 to 6 hours? You can see this. See, as I already told you, the gravid female migrates nocturnally from the small intestine down to the cecum, reaches the colon. From colon, it goes to the anus. They come out at the night and deposit the eggs in the perianal skin. The eggs become infectious within 6 hours, and the movement of the female worm and the eggs causes itching of the anus. Because of this itching sensation, scratching the area may result into retroinfection. The whole life of the life cycle is completed within 2 to 4 weeks of time, and the fertilization occurs in the colon. After that, the male will die. You have seen that the male has got a smaller lifespan than the female, because we have seen it is just going to be 1.5 to 2 months the male will be alive, whereas the female is going to be 1.5 to 3 months. Autoinfection occurs by scratching the perianal area and transferring the infective eggs to the mouth with contaminated hands by the patient himself. Following ingestion, eggs hatch, release of the larva in the small intestine, and the life cycle continues. See, autoinfection, mode of infection from anus to the mouth. Pinworm lays eggs on the perianal, scratching area with the fingers leads to the deposition of eggs under the nails. Most common in children. See here. Now this is how this larvae are entering. This is the area, anus. You can see this white, small pinworms that are hatched out in the perianal skin. Retroinfection, that is mode of infection from the anus to the colon. That is known as retroinfection, and the eggs laid on the perianal skin immediately hatch into infective stage of larva. Just look here. See, the eggs which were laid, they are going to hatch out, and this larva is coming out. And what happens? Migrates through the anus and develops into the worms in the colon. So again, they'll go back from the anus into the colon, and they will continue the life cycle. Say this female worm. Pathogenesis and clinical findings. Infection in man is known as enterobiasis, and it is thought to be an allergic reaction to the presence of either an adult female or the egg. Itching of the perianal and vaginal area is commonly notable, especially during the night. Whenever the infection is severe, all the nutrients are taken up by the worms, and therefore the patient loses his weight. Therefore, weight loss is observed whenever there is infection from worms. Scratching predisposes to the secondary bacterial infection. So whenever the person feels like scratching, now why scratching is there? Again, there's an allergic reaction either from the female worm or because of the eggs that are deposited on the anus. So when the scratching occurs, the skin or the mucus, which is very delicate in the anal region and even in the vagina, there is going to be the injury. This injury can cause a secondary bacterial infection if care is not taken off. Okay. Now, another thing what is very important in the pathogenesis is that eggs are never found in the stool. So, the stool examination in the pinworm infection is not useful. Now, what is the reason for this? As I have been twice or thrice repeating to you that there is nocturnal deposition of the eggs in the perianal region of the patient. And within 2 to 6 hours, these eggs, they are going to get converted into the larva. Therefore, the eggs will hatch within the night itself, and none of the eggs are passed in the stool. Okay, that is the reason that eggs are not found in the stools. Now, pathogenesis seen because of the auto-infection. I told you what is auto-infection. Secondly, I have talked to you about the retro-infection. So, pathogenesis can be because of retro-infection too. Secondly, no serological tests are also available to see the pinworm infection. Coming to the epidemiology, as I told you, it is the most common found worm throughout the world, and this is the reason it has been seen in children the most. The reason being, thumb sucking and nail biting are one of the most important reasons for the auto infection in the children. This infection is therefore more common in children less than 12 years of age. So, it is the most common infection worldwide. This infection is seen from years together. It is not a new infection. It is the oldest worm infection found in human being worldwide. Now coming to the treatment, mebendazole and albendazole can be used. These drugs are given in one dose at first, second dose repeated after 2 weeks. If the irritation is high, the person is unable to bear this irritation, then topical insecticide, which is containing an malathion, can be applied on the skin. Otherwise, there is no need for taking a special or application of the cream on the skin. Now, how will you prevent this? Maintaining hygienic condition, maintaining a proper sanitization and disposal of the feces. These are very important. Maintaining hygienic conditions, as I had already told you, in Ascaris lumbricoids, that is washing the hands before and after going to the toilet. Before and after taking meals, sorry. Washing hands after going to the toilet with the soap is very important. Do not share the towel.